Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I've got another round of class updates. We're going to be focusing in on Paladins and Druids, as they hadn't been receiving many updates until this most recent build, as well as Demon Hunters. Before we get into those deep dives of those three specializations, or those three classes, I just want to look at some of the quick updates here for classes that seemed like they were either just typos or I don't know what was happening. The first one, obviously, was Frost Mage. If you've watched my previous videos, you would have seen my opinion on this change here, where they had buffed Ice Lance by 25% against frozen targets. That Conduit's now only 4% increased damage, scaling only to 10% down from 60. But you can see why this had to have been a typo. It was 25 to 60. That was like a massive differential. Just a quick update for Mage in that regard. Quick update to Holy Priest. Our math was wrong, or I should say my math was wrong, where I was like, it was like 25 plus 8 minus 3 or whatever it was. Serenity is still only 2 extra charges, but 25% cooldown reduction. And Serenity is your most important heal in PvP. As a Holy Priest, it's just an instant cast, kind of lay on hands almost type of effect. So getting a 25% cooldown reduction on it alone, with a bunch of the cool utility that's being brought back to the Holy Priest kit, has definitely got my eye back on Holy Priest competitively, as it was looking to be pretty fun with some of the new honor talents they had designed into the game. So this is nice. 25 charges would have also been really nice, but that was obviously not realistic. This is also still kind of mind-bogglingly good, 25% cooldown reduction on their main heal, especially with the way their class works, reducing the cooldowns using their holy words. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm definitely gonna be trying Holy Priest a bit more. Twitch.tv/Supatease, easy plug. Next quick update was the Enhancement Shamans. Whenever you get something good, they'd always just take it away from you. They introduced Doom Winds back as a legendary effect through Wind Fury Totem, when you dropped Wind Fury and then your Wind Fury weapon damage was increased by 100%. Now it's only 25%. So the Wind Fury meme, enhancement, classic dream, probably not going to be a reality. But these were just 3 quick updates that I wanted to leave you with before we jump into the main builds here, which is Druid. And obviously, with myself playing Druid, these are going to matter a lot to me, but they also may matter a lot to you if you're interested in trying it. So Deep Roots is getting a massive buff/nerf. So if you didn't know what Deep Roots was in PvP, it was only entangling roots. It could maintain up to 400% more damage. So you could root a target and then hit into the target. They've reduced the amount of damage significantly to 250%, but I think this is as they've added Mass Entanglement as well. Mass Entanglement had difficulty being selected, I think, with Heart of the Wild on the row and Bash on the row. So now with Deep Roots potentially making your AoE root not break on damage, this had massive implications in the entire game. I mean, you could root Solar Beam in a battleground team and silence them and not have the root not break, which would be really insane, even in single target situations. So I'm not surprised to see it get nerfed. But specifically, let's look at some of the conduits, especially for Balanced Druid. My main concerns for Balanced Druid are the casted spells not feeling powerful. Let's see if any of the conduits here are going to address that. We see buffs to Precise Alignment, which is just duration of celestial alignment /incarn is now increased by 5 seconds, and its scaling is now up to 12. So a little bit of added time in incarnation. In PvE, that may be nice. In PvP as well, as it may give you enough of a cycle to get to 2 diminishing return cycles of crowd control. That's the main advantage in PvP and taking these conduits that extend your cooldowns, is that they might then push into a next wave of crowd control for burst. I'm not a big fan of the crowd control cooldown burst meta, but if it is the meta, then these things will likely be strong. Stellar Inspiration, Potency Conduit, Star Surge, and Starfall now have a 20% chance to empower Eclipse or extend Moonfire and Sunfire by double the amount. Double the dot duration, it's all right, but in PvP, again, you're already spamming Moonfire and Sunfire quite a bit, but 20% chance and scaled up to almost 50% chance to empower your Eclipse, which means you get double damage from its benefits, or Solar Wrath generates more astral power. You're banking on a lot of RNG. You're probably going to need to download an add-on or a weak aura to show up on your screen when you've got this, so you really know when you've got that buff in PvE or PvP. I mean, it's a buff, and it does have the potential to make those casted spells more meaningful, so I'm curious to see how it plays out. Umbral, it's the RNG element that is a little bit of a downturn for me personally. Umbral Intensity, Potency Conduit, Eclipse's damage bonus to Wrath and Starfire starts 30% stronger, scaling up to 72%. That's nice for just an immediate benefit on your Eclipse. this is making me want to try Boomkin with the casted spells in the beta a little bit more. So it's nice to see Boomkin getting, I mean, their buffs, at least through the Soulbind Conduits, and some of them are towards the casted spells, so I'm really hoping this ends up panning out for them. Guardian Druid got some buffs. Oh boy, did they need it. Guardian Druid is not looking too hot, PvP or PvE. Savage Combatant, Potency Conduit. Mangle increases the damage of your next maul by 15%, stacking up to 3 times. Now 36% stacking 3 times. That could be a really big maul. In PvE, do you really care about maul? Not so much. I mean, Swipe and Thrash are going to be doing almost all of your damage. So in PvE, I'm not sure if you'll take this. In PvP, maybe this is like cheesy. You get like a really fat maul hit. But other than that, Unchecked Aggression, Potency Conduit. You gain 15% haste during your Berserk in bear form, up to 36% haste. That's a fat stack of haste right there. That's a lot of swipes and thrashes you can pump out with that. That's definitely a nice little buff in terms of the damage output. Well-honed Instincts, Endurance Conduit. When you fall below 40% health instead of 25, you auto-cast Frenzy Regen only every 90 seconds. A little bit of quality of life, like an emergency, like, oh, I got hit really hard and I didn't have a charge of Frenzy. It'll cover it up if you're making mistakes in PvE. In PvP, I believe you can take this Conduit as any spec. So even Resto, Druid, or Boomkin, or Feral, you could get an auto Frenzy Regen every 90 seconds as an emergency heal. I'm thinking this is like a safeguard PvP trinket. So, I mean, this has pretty big implications in PvP. And in my mind, like, these endurance conduits are like, I'm zoned in on these potentially being problematic in PvP because of their nature of just creating limitless survivability. PvP talent changes for Resto Druid. Early Spring. Basically now when you wild growth, your next wild growth will also apply life bloom to all targets at 100% effectiveness. It's a lot of life bloom healing. I mean, this is really only going to be an implication in battlegrounds for Resto Druid, but you get a lot of AoE healing from that. Soulbind Conduits, Resto Druid buffs, Floral Recycling. Swiftman's healing is increased by 40%, up from 30 of the consumed heal over time effect, and this is buffed at a scaling rate to 96%. That's a really big buff. Likely in PvE, Swiftman's not that big of a deal, so I think this is why this is getting buffed so much. But in PvP, this is a massive deal. This is a really big buff to you in PvP, and it also makes the PvP choice a little bit more competitive in PvE. Although it's probably not going to compete with the PvE options. It's just hard to compete single target versus AoE. Unstoppable Growth, Potency Conduit. Wild Growth healing falls off 20% less time, down from 30%, and its scaling got nerfed. See what I mean here? This is a conduit where it's going to excel in Raiding, Mythic Plus, where Wild Growth is something you're casting often, trying to get on multiple targets. In PvP, other than Battlegrounds, again, maybe with Early Spring, you're hardly casting it, if ever. So a nerf to this is likely trying to bring it down in PvE, but you were probably not going to take this in PvP anyway if you were worried about PvP. We see some buffs to the Soulbind Conduits for Night Fae and nerfs to Venthyr. There's, big nerfs to Venthyr. But for Night Fae, Potency Conduit, while channeling Convoke the Spirits, your damage and healing are increased by 15%, scaling up to 36%. So that's going to be some really big balance. Affinity, Mythic Plus, Convoke the Spirits windows. Potentially some really big Heart of the Wild healing Convoke the Spirits in PvP if you're really dead set on running a Night Fae Druid. This is going to help you make it work a little bit better. And in Mythic Plus is already, I think, doing pretty good. But obviously in Raid, Endless Thirst, the Potency Conduit for Ravenous Frenzy, was excelling, and it got hit not massively hard, maybe a little bit. Ravenous Frenzy increases your critical strike chance by 0.5%, down from 2%, and only scales up to 1.2% per stack. So even at its max rank, it's almost half the value of its first rank, which makes me wonder if this just wasn't looked at yet, and now it's put into its proper place. But this may have been contributing to why things like Resto Druid were excelling so much in Raid with the Venthyr Covenant, which if you're a PvP Druid, you don't really want to be Venthyr. So bringing this down means that the other options are going to be more competitive for you in PvP. In PvE, again, same thing. The other ones are going to be more competitive comparatively to the Venthyr. So Druid overall, getting some shifts around, some buffs to Boomkin, Resto, and Guardian across the board, and some Covenant swap-ups. Now looking at Paladin. Paladin had a lot of attention to it as well. Starting off with the legendaries, you got the Shadow Breaker, Dawn of the Sun. Light of Dawn's range is increased by 40 yards. All allies within your Light of Dawn benefit from your mastery, which is more healing when they're closer to you. And Word of Glory receives 15% increased benefit from your mastery. So in PvP, you don't really care about Light of Dawn. In PvE, you do. This may make this legendary more competitive, but it's not massively eye-grabbing to me. If you could get this and make it work as red, it would be insane, but no. So benefiting Word of Glory, that is. Maybe it's still going to be good for raid. Again, when I see the word Light of Dawn, I just automatically think raid for Holy Paladin. I don't really think of much else. So curious to see, but it's not eye-grabbing. Shock Barrier, though, has potentially got my attention. Holy Shock protects the target with a shield of holy light for 18 seconds, absorbing damage equal to 20% of the holy shock every 6 seconds, and can protect up to 3 targets. Divine Toll, Kyrian, Holy Paladin, getting holy shocks on multiple targets and getting a shield benefit. This could be really good in Mythic Plus. As a Kyrian Paladin, both aggressively and defensively with Divine Toll, to try and recover or to get damage out. Curious to see how this one plays out, because the legendaries for Paladin, at least Holy, weren't super interesting, at least in PvP. So not a lot of changes, enough that it really grabs my attention. Soulbind Conduit changes. Enkindled Spirit, Aura Mastery increases the healing of your next 3 Light of Dawns by 30%, down from 40, and its scaling was nerfed. Again, not surprised to see scaling nerfs to raid type healing abilities on healers that were excelling. I think this makes sense. And in PvP, you don't really care because you were never going to take this one in PvP anyways. Resplendent Light, Potency Conduit, Holy Light heals up to 5 targets within 8 yards for 6%, buffed, and its scaling was increased. Again, it seems to me like this is a raiding conduit. Getting your Holy Light to AoE healed by a slight margin will have big results in your parsing with multiple targets, but in PvP, it's not about parsing, and there's not that many targets to cleave healing to in competitive arena modes or even in battlegrounds. So again, this in PvP is the conduit we're probably going to ignore. In PvE, you get a slight cleave amount of healing. Not sure if it'll complete with Light of Dawn, but this is only during Aura Mastery. Untempered Dedication, Potency Conduit. Light of the Martyr's damage and healing is increased by 5% each time it is cast, and this effect can stack up to 5 times and last for 15 seconds. And this goes up to 12%. So this could have implications in PvP, because Light of Martyr is a spell you never use in PvE, but it's one that you could use a lot, at least in Legion, in PvP. So I'm curious to see if we see this Conduit potentially increase the viability of Holy Paladin. Looks like the scaling towards its beginning ranks was nerfed, but I'm not sure if these were just typos, so maybe this did just get nerfed overall. But Light of the Martyr could be a way for Holy Paladins to kind of claw their way back in terms of competitiveness. Protection, we've got a couple buffs and a massive nerf. I should say 1 buff and 1 nerf. Royal Decree, Endurance Conduit. Your Guardian of Ancient Kings cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and casting it causes your next Word of Glory to cost no holy power, now reducing the cooldown scaling over time to up to 36 seconds. But this was a pretty big nerf. Vengeful Shock. Avenger Shield causes your target. This is PvE and PvP. Is going to bring your damage down dramatically. Vengeful Shock. Avenger Shield causes your target to take 3% increased holy damage, down from 15 for 5 seconds, and it's scaled only up to 7.2. That's a big fatty nerf on Prot Paladin in PvE and PvP in terms of their damage output, as this was like a kind of a go-to conduit. So kind of breaking there. So Guardian might be increasing its viability just because of that. Ret Paladin getting some buffs, which is honestly a little bit surprising, but Expurgation, the Battle for Azeroth Azerite trait, is now a Soulbind Conduit, and they buffed it. Now, when you use Blade of Justice, the critical strike hits will cause the target to have a dot, and that does 32% of the damage, dealt every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, up from 15%, and it's scaled up to 76%. So that Expurgation build could be making a return for Retribution Paladin, and they're going to be getting even more burst damage from it. Maybe they're trying to create more Blade of Justice build options in PvE with this change, but in PvP you get more burst. Templar's Vindication, Potency Conduit. Templar's Verdict has now a 30% chance to strike again for 60% of its damage, up from 15%, and they scaled it up to 72%. That's insane. I think I'm playing Ret. I started working on my Ret on retail. I got like 100 item level now, and that was painful to get on the pre-patch, but I did it. And yeah, okay. I mean, that's like if that procs and you get it. Oh my goodness, that's insane. Ret's insane. Truce, Wake, Potency Conduit. Wake of Ashes burns the target for an additional 13, down from 15. Who cares? 2%, and its scaling got nerfed 5%. I mean, you care if you're a Mythic Plus player because this is most of your trash damage, but not most of it, but a big portion of burst damage on trash. You care about it there, but 2% in PvE, whereas this is a huge single target buff to Ret. Virtuous Command, Potency Conduit. Judgment grants you Virtuous Command for 6 seconds, which causes your Templar's Verdict, Crusader Strike, Blade of Justice, and auto attacks to deal 40% more holy damage, scaled up to 96% from 48%. And you can get both these. I can get Templar's Verdict's 30% chance to do 60% more damage and buff it by 40%. What? What is? I just take like a moment of silence. Why can't like? Maybe they like you, Ret Paladins. You know, like maybe you got yourself an ally there inside Blizzard. Like poor Enhancement Shamans, man. Like we look back. Okay. Curious to see how that one plays out here for the Ret Paladins. Divine. These are Soulbind Conduits for all specs. Divine Call. Divine Shield's remaining cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds when you take damage. This effect can only occur every 48, up from 30. And then it looks like it gets down to 20. I'm not sure if you were ultimately going to really take this. It's not a lot of cooldown reduction, whether it's PvE or PvP. The Golden Path, Endurance Conduit, Consecration heals you for X amount of math every 1 second. Maybe they're trying to buff the Consecration healing with this. Hard to say. I'm not good at math. Or that's the same number. 200 divided by 100 is half. I can't. Light's Barding, Finesse Conduit, Divine Steed's duration is increased by 50%, and it scales up to 120% from 100%. So you get even mobility buffs. Burst damage buffs, mobility buffs. Ret's getting buffs. Righteous Might, this is probably a nerf for Prop Paladin in PvE. Potency Conduit, Vanquisher Hammer deals 20% increased damage down from 50% and heals you for the damage done, and its scaling was cut almost by a third. Again, I think this is likely for a Prop Paladin nerf in PvE. Ringing Clarity, Potency Conduit. Divine Toll has a 40% chance to cast 3 times on the main target, up from 2. And the main reason I'm looking at this is PvP, not PvE. This could just not even matter for you in PvE. I'm not sure, but in PvP, you'll cast 3 judgments. An extra 3 times on the main target. 4 judgments. And you can get an honor talent where Judgment does 5% of the target's health. 20% of their health. Just 40% chance to... Oh my. Okay. Shielding Words. Endurance Conduit. Casting Word of Glory grants you a shield that prevents damage equal to 15% of the healing done from Word of Glory. It lasts 10 seconds. Scaling got slightly buffed. Word of Glory is an amazing heal, so even a slight buff to this is insane to me. The Long Summer, but they're probably trying to encourage Prop Paladins to use it in PvE. The Long Summer, Potency Conduit, Blessing of Summer got nerfed. It now only lasts 25% longer, down from 30%. Although this is a Potency Conduit contending with some of those other Ret Potency Conduits, so I'm not sure if you would have taken it. The scaling looks about the same, maybe like slightly nerfed, just slightly nerfed to Night Fae. Wrench Evil, Finesse Conduit, Turn Evil's cast time is reduced by 40%. And it's scaled up to almost 100% at max range. You can instant Turn Evil, which could be useful for fearing Warlock pets to avoid their interrupts, fearing Death Knight pets when they're empowered to reduce damage. So a nice little PvP utility buff. And it could be useful in things like Torghast, fear some undead monsters. But pretty niche in terms of its utility. So really big changes there for Paladin. And then finally, Demon Hunter. This is more or less just a little bit of a quick update. Glaive Tempest, slight nerf. Unbound Chaos got a rework. It seems where it got nerfed and then removed, and now Unbound Chaos. So the problem with this rework of Unbound Chaos, if you didn't know, it was like you immolate Ishinora, Fell Rushed, and then a demon charged towards an area. It looked cool, but actually making the demon hit the thing you wanted it to hit, it was really challenging to say the least. So they've removed the demon part of it. And now when you activate Immolation Aura, the damage of your next Fell Rush is just increased by 300%. So just feta, really big Fel Rush in a row. A little bit of a typo correction on Mortal Rush, now only lasting 20 seconds for their mortal wounds. And then a buff to the Fel Bombardment legendary. So Immolation Aura has a chance to grant you a stack of Fel Bombardment, increasing the damage your next throw glaive deals to your primary target by 50%, and launching an additional glaive to a nearby target. Potentially trying to increase some throw glaive builds with this, but the main change was the Unbound Chaos being removed and reworked into something a little bit more straightforward and easier to land. Other than that, that is going to conclude this round of updates. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave the video with a like. Consider subscribing to the channel, as I'm updating you as soon as possible. I mean, I think this update literally came out like maybe 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. I was like, I need to make a video. People need to know that Ret Paladins are in. Frost Mages, maybe they're out. Enhancement Shamans, you're definitely out. So we got it out there. Now you know. And it's important that you know. At least for me, it's important to know that you know. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.